Welcome, I'm Rod Favela with Vela Sailing Supply, and today we are here starting the part 2 of the series of how to get your VX1 ready. Thanks again to Gus Schmigi and Regatta Shots. He's doing a phenomenal job helping us out, and here we are with a hull number 170. If you folks follow the first video, you realize we were using a hull 327, which is waiting for us in Pensacola, where we're going to be racing next weekend on the last winter event of the winter series, event number 3. So we have the boat here ready to splash. On the first part, we show you how to put the boat together from the road, removing covers, stepping the mast, securing everything. And now that the boat has been prepared for being lifted and launched, we're going to show you the next steps to make sure that you guys will have all the information you need to splash securely and get it ready to sail. Okay, so let me talk about a couple of safety issues. Make sure that you have this covered before you leave the boat off the trailer or launch it on the ramp. So this is our keel hoist, two-part. This is the first connecting line that comes from the spreader bracket, and it hangs about a couple of feet above the keel plate when the keel is up. And then you have the 4-to-1 tackle, a double block on the top and a bottom fiddle block with a cam cleat that you want to make sure that the shackles are properly secure in both places, the hooks are clean, and I always like to do some sort of a safety knot to make sure that the line is not going to slide as the boat is being lifted. This is going to keep the keel up as the boat is moved from the trailer onto the water. Once your keel is secure and you're positive that it's going to be safe to launch, whether it's the ramp or the crane, the next step is to check on the 3-point lifting sling, and this only applies if you're going to use a crane to launch the boat. We have one point to port, the other one to starboard, connected to the available hole on the chain plates, and then the last one, which is aft leg, that goes to the ice trap on the rudder post. As you can tell, this point here is pulled slightly back from the center of gravity of the boat. What this is going to allow to do is, as you lift the boat on a crane, it's going to make the bow sit lower than the transom, and that will help the rig stay clear of the arm of a crane. That way you don't run into any troubles of having the rig hitting your crane. So just make sure that you don't put too much weight on the back to help the natural balance of the boat with the lifting sling. Other than that, the boat is pretty much ready to go. And but before we splash, we're gonna show you guys how to put the jib on the furling system and then the spinnaker, which is way easier to do on land rather than doing it on the water. Another neat trick that we used before we splash the boat is to put the rudder upside down on the gudgeons. The whole point of doing this is to clear the cockpit and keep the rudder from anybody stepping on it or getting scratched against the non-skid or the tiller extension or whatnot. And it's very cool. You can move the boat around. It's going to be secure here. The only important point that you need to have, especially if you're going to use a crane to splash your boat, is that the hook of the crane doesn't hit the rudder as you're moving the boat around. So I'm a big fan of, once we are ready to splash it, take it off, lay it down on top of one of the sails or the life jackets, and that way your rudder will be in good shape without any scratches. Now the next step that we're going to do before we splash our boat is going to be putting the jib up on the boat. Your jib is going to come with 2 battens. They are going to be tapered, meaning one part is going to be thinner than the other. And if you realize, as I push both ends together, the depth is uneven. That means the thinner part goes inside into the sail. The thicker part goes towards the leech. So depending on how the pocket is based on your sail maker, you just want to make sure that at the end, once the batten is installed, the thicker part is towards the leech and the thinner part is toward the center of the body of the sail. And with that, we're going to unroll this jib and we're going to go ahead and put the battens in the corresponding pockets. Oh, it is important to mention that the longer batten goes at the bottom, the shorter batten goes at the top. I'm going to start here. If you can hold this, I'm going to with the upper batten, And right now we're doing this in the asphalt. If you guys are gonna do it, just make sure it's pretty careful that it's clean. This spot, even though maybe it doesn't look that clean on the camera, it's pretty clean and pretty safe. But just be careful that you treat your Jeep properly. All right, so the first one is done. We're gonna go to the second one, thank you. Now we're doing the second batten. Again, thinner part towards the inside of the sail, thicker part towards the leech. Push in. And of course, all right, and we're all set. Now the part that I really like to do, or the way I really like to do to connecting the jib onto the boat, is going with the three corners first. Probably you may want to wait on the tack because it's easier to do it without connecting the tack, but definitely you go for the head, then connect the clue to the sheets. We will do that in a second. And this is a two-man job. You're gonna have somebody on the boat hoisting the sail as the other person is pulling the zipper down as the sail goes around the headstay and is being hoisted. Now, having the head of the jib connected already to the Harken hoistable swivel and the zipper started, our crew member Victor is ready to start zipping up as this jib goes up. Our jib halyard on the VX1 is a two-part. There is a messenger line, which is this red line that you see here, and it is very important that when the jib is up, we make sure that we do not connect the 4-to-1 purchase system to the messenger. We need to make sure that we connect it to the I-splice that you guys will find out when the sail is all the way up. So with that said, we're gonna start hoisting, and you probably don't see right now, but in the front is Victor zipping up as the sail goes up. This can be done from on board. It's actually much easier. We're doing from a side right now so you guys can see. It is very important that you do not pull from here, otherwise you're gonna open a groove on the gel cut of your boat. So it's always better to pull it straight from the mast as I'm doing here right now. Let's see. All right. And as you can see, we have two pieces here. The red line, that is our messenger, and the white line, that is a thicker line, and this hook will go into this tiny I-splice here. We just want to make sure that we connect the hook to the actual jib halyard, which is the white line in this case, and most likely it's going to be a thicker line than what you have as a messenger. Once we have our 4-to-1 tackle connected, you can ease it a little bit for the crew to connect it to the tack on the front, right there on the bow. Okay, so now we're going to start hoisting the sail. As you can see, you must start the zipper, and once you're past the button, make sure to not to forget to put the snap on. Make sure it's very solid, otherwise it may get tangled up with the top swivel as you furl and unfurl the sail. So with that, we keep hoisting. And then you should have another snap at the bottom. Make sure that you connect it, and then leave the tack for last. That will make easier for the other crew member to connect the 4-to-1 purchase hook to the halyard. And once we are connected, we call it made, and ease it a little bit so you can, as you can see, the tack just went down. You can put the shackle in there. There are different types of attachments for that one. It could be a soft shackle, it could be a regular screw pin type, or the one with the cotton ring. Even though we have a cotton ring on this one, we're not really fans of it because there is a chance of getting it tangled up with the tack line or the sail. But for that, we can use some electrical tape, and that will really secure that part and prevent that from happening. All right, now that we have the jib fully connected, you can see the tack Don't forget about putting the tape on it, even if you have a soft shackle or a screw pin type shackle, and especially if you have a pin shackle with a cotter ring on it. Now we also have the clue connected to it, and of course the head. Now it's time to furl the jib. It is very important that when we furl the jib, we have a little bit of load on it. Today's a very lighter day, so we're gonna give it the best shot we can. So make sure that we don't have any tension on the sheet, so you don't have any creases pulling as you roll the sail in. Otherwise, you're gonna really damage the laminate material, and you definitely don't wanna do that. I take the opportunity to mention that when you furl the sail on the water while sailing, waiting between races or whatnot, it is best to furl the sail when you're heading almost dead downwind. Slight load on the jib, make sure that you have no creases as the jib is furling in, and much better doing it that way than going upwind or head to wind and trying to furl it, especially in heavy air. All right, so now we're gonna get ready to install the spinnaker, put the spinnaker into the boat. I like to grab the head, typically it's the one that has the two color-coded tapes, and start running the luff down until I find the tack that will remove any potential twists or turns that the spinnaker may have. And here it is, here we have the tack. The tack on the VX1 is a fixed length tack that is tied down to the mast base. And I strongly suggest to have a stopper ball, that way you don't suck the knot inside the tip of the bowsprit when it's under heavy loads. So we're gonna come here, we're gonna tie the smallest bow line I can on this line. All right. Our tack is connected. Now we're gonna run the tape of the foot. In this particular sail is wide until we get to the clue. That way we remove any potential twists or turns they may have. Almost all the clues are soft clues on the VX1 spinnakers, and in our case we have a soft shackle that connects both sheets into it. Some other boats have two soft shackles or a pigtail or tying bow lines, whatever is best. Just go ahead, and if you have a soft shackle, make sure it's properly closed. Now we have clue and tack connected. Then the next one that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take care of the halyard. And you may think that the halyard is a little bit on the too short side, but not really. What happens with the VX1 spinnakers is that the sail itself is part of the circuit of the halyard and retrieving line. So you do not want a halyard that is way too long. Come here. We get to the head, and we also use a stopper ball here to make sure that the knot doesn't get sucked into the masthead sheave when we hoist. Right now, we're gonna tie the head, and as you may see, it looks like the halyard is too short. The truth is that the system on this VX1 is a closed system where the retrieving line and the spinnaker halyard are the same line, and the sail becomes part of the length of the complete system. You do not want to have an extra long halyard, because there will be a bunch of line prone to getting kinks as you douse or hoist the spinnaker. Therefore, it looks right now, as I'm tying this line, that the halyard may be a little bit on the too short side, but it's not really by the time we secure the spinnaker onto it. So we're gonna go ahead and tie a bow line in here. It's easy if you do this from on top of the boat, of course. And right now, the last part, which can be tricky if you mess up, but it can always be fixed fairly easily, is the retrieving line component of the spinnaker. As you can see, we have a line coming out of the hole here of the snuffer. So what we're gonna do in this particular case, we are going to just pull. As I pull, you see I pull the retrieving and the sail goes up. You wanna make sure that you take the retrieving part and goes underneath the spinnaker sheets. As you can see, this is a very important point. If you do it like this, you're gonna have a tangle up when you jibe onto a port jibe. So we wanna go underneath, and then we're gonna take the foot of the sail, kind of the middle of the foot, until we find the first patch. It's a grommet, as you can see here. We're gonna go through with it. And at this point, There are a couple of ways of doing this, but the way I like to do it, I put a stopper ball here. Just make sure that it goes all the way in. And then we keep going to following the spine of the center of the spinnaker until we get, this particular case, we're using this messenger line. It's about from shoulder to tip of your arm. This is about a yard, 3 feet. And that's where you want to put the stopper knot. You can also have a longer halyard where this point goes all the way to the patch, the upper patch. In our boat, our halyard is a little shorter and we just use a 2mm Dyneema line, which is a little bit lighter than the core of the halyard for the upper part. So we just tie a bow line here. And now our spinnaker is essentially ready to be pulled in. Now we have the spinnaker ready to put inside the snuffer. Just make sure that when you hoist it and actually suck it inside the sleeve, it doesn't get tangled up with the trailer or any sharp edges. So as one of the crew members is pulling in from the boat, in this case Victor is going to help us out, we just kind of help it fit in. We just stuff it in there. There you go. One important thing to remember on the VX1, if the boat has relatively low friction on almost every system, and it's a very lightly loaded boat. So if you're fighting, if you have to muscle something in, you better stop and double check, make sure that everything is fine, everything is where it belongs to, and then keep going. If you force something, most likely is because something is tangled up or cleated or getting tangled, so you do not want to be forcing anything so you don't break your equipment. Now we're ready to splash our VX1. As you can tell, we have taken the slack of the 3 legs of the lifting sling, and right now Victor is getting ready to hold the bow as we lift the boat up. Make sure that the knuckle of the boat doesn't hit the trailer, because as we mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that the boat starts lifting with that transom a little higher than the bow, so the rig, as you will see, stays clear from the crane arm. And with that, here we go, coming up. Good? Good. And with that, as you can see, Victor is holding what our mandatory safety line that the class requires is going to be about 66 feet or 60 feet, yeah, 20 meters of line, and we have it connected on the bow and on the transom. That way we can control the axis of the boat as we splash it. So here we go. Pull the bow a little, Vic. Yeah, there you go. You can tell that given the geometry of the lifting sling, the bow is slightly lower. That keeps the rig fairly away from the crane arm. So at this point is when it's very important that you coordinate with your crew member about coming out, taking the hook off, and then go up the crane so we don't hit the rudder. Okay, Vic, it's okay, let it go. And that is all there is to it about splashing the boat from the trailer into the water. All right. So now we are getting ready to drop the keel. I want to start here at the dock just to show that even though the VX1 is a very stable boat, thanks for its very cool design, when the keel is up, it's slightly more unstable than when the keel is all the way down. So I am about 154 pounds. So when I'm gonna step here on the side, and so you can tell the boat is still secure, and even though the keel is up, just be careful. And this must be probably a one-man job is the best way to do it. So you can walk down here. We're gonna go ahead and pull our Allen wrench and our keel bolts. This is our Allen wrench and our 2 keel bolts, and we're gonna proceed on dropping the keel. So just make sure that you have no lines on the way, that everything is away. You can always clear it out later on. We're gonna come undone and undo this line here, the knot. And now we are uncleated. Just make sure that you be careful, don't get hurt, don't have never your fingers underneath the blade as the keel comes down. I'm gonna take a quick break before we drop it, just to let you know that especially for those of you that sail in saltwater environment, there are a couple of components that are good to apply before you screw the plate down, and in the previous video you saw when we were doing that. So it is important to apply any sort of isolator for reducing or eliminating corrosion, galvanic corrosion, given the contact of the similar metals there, especially for those of you sailing in saltwater environment. With that said, we're gonna start bringing the keel down. So gravity is our best friend on this one. Remember that as the keel goes down, there are a couple of urethane chocks, and especially on the new boats, all this is very snug, very tight. So just be patient and make sure that you see it wants to come down on a step-by-step basis. So what I'm gonna do, if you push forward slightly, she wants to keep coming down. So I just, without putting my fingers underneath, I just push forward, and it makes the keel come down much easier. Right now, for example, it's a little stuck, so I just push forward a little bit and she came down a touch. And we keep doing that. Right now, you see it's still stuck, so I just push forward again. One foot at a time, there's no rush to do this. So as it comes down, just make sure that you don't smash the jam cleat for the jib halyard that is going to be on the port side. So we just come down here. I'm about to smash this one. There you go. Now the keel is sitting. Right now you're going to realize that the back hole is touching and there is a little bit of a gap on the forward hole. So what you want to make sure is that when you secure the keel bolts, you don't want to force them. So you can see this situation here with the jib halyard tensioner. You want to make sure that you are cleated, and I like to keep my hand this as a backup, and just pull it out, put it on top of the plate, and then uncleat and keep pushing down very carefully until it's nice and snug sits in. One important thing that you want to keep in mind is the holes on the boat are made of G10. That is a synthetic material. It's non-metallic, so you do not want to force the screws into it. For whatever reason, as you thread them in, they don't feel nice and easy. You want to stop and back up and start again. So we're going to start with the forward screw and see how, if it goes by hand. It's not biting. Well, probably it is right now. I'm going to take my Allen wrench, and it's very loose, it's very nice, and you just want to have them snug, firm. You don't want to have them super tight, because remember, once again, it's a G10 backing plate, which you don't want to force in. Once the forward screw is secure, we go with the aft one, and final touch, 1/4 turn. We put our Allen wrench in here and stuff it. One important point is when you go out there and sail in heavy air, choppy water, it will be interesting to check the screws between races, because with all the motion and the movement that happens when you're sailing heavy air, sometimes it may come undone a little bit, no big deal, but you want to, just snug them between races. Don't forget that. Once we're fully secure there, we take the hook of the folding pad eye off, and I like to pull all the slack out of the 4-to-1 so we don't have it tangled up. We take it all off, and we do not have to sail with this guy. We just can take it to the truck, take it to the trailer, leave it on shore together with the lifting sling. So now we're gonna keep just pulling up on the 4-to-1. Just make sure that you always have your feet away from the plate in case there is a potential failure. When you're getting closer, you definitely don't wanna pull too tight so you don't slam the bulb against the hull. So it's not a bad idea to mark your hoisting line, as that's what we're going to do on this one. It's a brand new line that we haven't marked up yet. So right there is max hoist. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a Sharpie. We're going to just mark right here. You want to do a big notorious mark so you know exactly when you're getting closer and you don't damage either your hull or the bulb. Obviously all this will change if you undo this knot, but at least we have a point of reference here. And it's not a bad idea to also mark where you tie the bulb line to. All right? With that said, we repeat the process. Just come up through the cleat, put a couple of loops around itself so it stays in place. And now, making sure that the lifting sling is ready to go, we are ready to pull this boat out of the water.